It began with the kind of evening Americans trust without thinking. A soft orange sky fading into purple, lawns watered, porches lit, and families finishing dinner. The quiet didn't break with screams or gunfire. It shattered with the sound of claws on pavement. People first noticed the shadow before they saw what it was. A German shepherd sprinting through a suburban street like something was chasing him from hell itself. He wasn't just running. He was fighting gravity, stumbling, bleeding, refusing to fall. Porch lights flicked on. Phones lifted. A few people stepped forward, then froze when they saw what was strapped to his back. A child. A little girl. Her wrists were bound tight behind her. Duct tape had torn away but still clung to the side of her face. Her hair was tangled, her breathing shallow, her head lolling like she'd pass out at any moment. And the dog, he wore a tactical vest clearly marked. K9 Federal Property. FBI. The street erupted into chaos. Someone screamed. Someone else gasped, "Call 911." Another person just stared. Because the dog wasn't simply blood-stained, he was soaked in crimson. It matted his fur, ran down his legs, smeared across his chest like war paint. He stumbled once, twice. Then he pushed forward harder. He wasn't stopping. Not until he reached where he needed to go. Sirens burst to life blocks away. The dog turned instinctively toward the sound, veered around a corner, and bolted toward a hardened concrete building with an American flag flapping under floodlights. The FBI field office. Security agents rushed out the doors the moment they saw him. Guns lifted reflexively, because what kind of nightmare was this? Then eyes widened. The weapons dropped. Jesus Christ. Get medics now. The dog skidded to a stop at the steps, body shaking. He looked up at the agents like he knew them, like he had seen this doorway every day of his life. His breath rattled. His paws slipped. Then he collapsed. Agents lunged forward. One caught the girl before she slid off his back. Another grabbed the dog, checking for wounds, searching for gunshots, stab marks, anything. But the strange part, most of the blood wasn't his. Pulse weak, a medic shouted. She's in shock, move, move. The girl gasped, coughing. Tears mixed with grime streaking her cheeks. Her lips trembled like speaking itself hurt. An agent knelt beside her, carefully wiping the tape residue from her face. "You're safe," he whispered. "You're safe now, you're okay. We've got you. You're with the FBI. No one's going to hurt you again, can you hear me?" She blinked. Her eyes didn't look like a child's eyes should, not full of innocence. Full of nightmares. The dog ranger lifted his head weakly. His breathing trembled, his chest rising unevenly. He whined, panic and refusal to collapse in that mournful sound. An agent pressed a hand against his side, grounding him gently. "Easy, buddy, easy. You did good. You did real good. Just breathe." Medical teams rushed the girl inside on a stretcher. Ranger tried to stand as they wheeled her away, dragging his battered body across the floor to chase her. He wasn't leaving her. He wouldn't. They had to physically restrain him, not harshly, but firm enough to keep him from tearing his stitches open. Hold him, someone sedate if necessary. "No sedative," another agent barked. "He's in mission drive, just keep pressure, talk to him, keep him conscious." Voices swirled, commands flew, radios screamed. This wasn't a standard kidnapping recovery. This was evidence of war. Blood samples, DNA kits, chain of custody, photos, documentation, tactical protocol leveled up instantly. Something very, very wrong had happened. Inside the emergency triage room, agents surrounded the girl as doctors worked. Her breathing rattled. Her lips failed to form words. Her pulse fluttered under trembling skin. "Can you tell us your name?" No response. "How many people were there?" "Nothing." "Where did the dog find you?" Her eyes fluttered. One of the agents leaned closer, softer, gentler than anyone else in the room. "Sweetheart, we need to know where you came from. We need to know who hurt you. Please help us find them." Her lips trembled. A choked breath escaped. Then, barely audible, she whispered one word. Not a name. Not an address. Not a plea for help. A single word. A location. A place buried deep off any normal route. Isolated. Forgotten by GPS. The kind of place people choose because they don't want to be found. The room froze. Agents exchanged looks. Radios lit up. "Confirm that, repeat," did she just say? "Yes." She said it twice. "That location is real." Every second counted now. They rushed the coordinates through databases. Satellite imaging popped up. Maps loaded. A rural wooded sector tied to nothing. Private land. No records, old property trace. Nothing meaningful. It shouldn't exist, yet it did. And it wasn't civilian jurisdiction anymore. It was federal priority. Commanders stormed the operations floor. Tactical teams snapped into motion. Helicopter crews prepped. SWAT gear loaded. Drones initialized. Orders were clear. Follow the dog's trail back to where he came from. Find what he found. Find who did this. Because one truth was now unavoidably clear. Ranger didn't escape from danger. He ran straight through it, tore a child away from it, and bled his way across miles to bring her to safety. That wasn't instinct. That was intention. Someone asked the obvious question then. If the blood isn't the dog's, whose is it? No one answered. Because no one wanted to imagine it. A senior agent finally moved to Ranger's side as a vet examined him. He placed a steady hand on the K9's head, meeting those unwavering dark eyes. "You're not done yet, are you?" he murmured quietly. Ranger didn't blink. Didn't look away. Didn't seem capable of rest. He stared at the door the girl had disappeared through, like every beat of his heart was chained to hers. Like he was still on mission. Outside, sirens multiplied, the air charged with adrenaline, urgency, fear. This wasn't a rescue mission anymore. It was a hunt. And somewhere out there, deep in the woods, someone thought they had just lost a piece of property. They had no idea they had just provoked the full force of the United States government. But as teams geared up, as the girl struggled to stay conscious, as Ranger refused to lie down even as medics tried to stabilize him, one unspoken fear tightened in every chest. If a federal K9 had to save a child like this, what on earth were they about to find where she came from? The moment the girl's whispered word hit the operations floor, the air shifted. Maps were pulled onto screens, satellites zoomed in, and drones powered up. Every agent, every tech specialist, every handler knew this was no ordinary suburban abduction. This was something planned, meticulous, and terrifyingly patient. Ranger growled low in the corner of the room, refusing to sit even as medics wiped blood from his fur. His ears twitched at every sound, the distant chopper blades, the hurried steps of humans around him, the soft beeping of monitors. He knew. He always knew. The lead field agent, Special Agent Carter, gestured sharply. "All teams mobilize, air and ground. Follow the dog scent trail, full tactical gear, no mistakes." Outside, the night had fallen completely. The forest stretched like a black ocean along the horizon. Crane-like shadows of trees swayed under moonlight, branches scratching at the sky. The drones, infrared cameras highlighted what human eyes could not. Patches of blood along dirt trails, disturbed soil, tire tracks worn into the forest floor. Ranger bolted toward the woods the instant the command was given. Leashes and restraints weren't options. He sprinted with a single purpose, the ground thundering under his paws, and the agents followed, a convoy of SUVs and tactical jeeps kicking up dust as they pressed the trail. The girl, now in a heavily armed transport van, trembled against a medic's shoulder. "It's okay, you're safe now. the medic whispered, though his own gut twisted in fear. The weight of her trauma was palpable. Each word she had spoken, every frantic glance, every shiver told a story of horrors the FBI had only glimpsed in training simulations. Ranger didn't falter. He veered around a fallen log, skidded through a shallow creek, and paused for a split second on a ridge. His eyes locked onto something. Then a low, guttural bark escaped him, one that made even hardened agents tense. They weren't alone. The forest, supposedly empty, was humming, not with crickets or night birds but with human presence. From the shadows, faint figures moved. Silhouettes paused on the ridges, watching, listening. Every now and then, a light flickered, briefly illuminating faces. Faces too old to be children, too calm to be scared, and far too organized to be random drifters. "They know we're coming," whispered Agent Ramirez beside Carter. His voice was low, tense, but there was no panic, only cold calculation. "They're waiting for us." Ranger's hackles rose. He growled, low and steady. The agents pulled out night vision goggles, rifles raised. Every step forward was deliberate, careful. Every rustle of leaves made hearts pound. Then they saw it, an old dirt trail leading into a clearing that didn't appear on maps. The trail ended abruptly in a series of tire marks, deep and fresh. Blood streaked along the edges. Someone, or several someones, had moved quickly but purposefully, leaving signs to be followed only by someone who knew the path. The agents froze. Ranger sniffed the air, nose quivering, tail rigid. He barked once, then bolted straight into the dark. Carter cursed under his breath and sprinted after him. The night air was thick with mist, fog curling around tree trunks like fingers trying to hide the secrets beneath. Through the trees, the faintest sounds emerged. Whispers, muffled cries, not one voice but several, children's voices. They were scattered, moving in panic, their fear echoing like ghostly alarms. Ranger's pace quickened, muscles coiled with urgency. He led the team to a small clearing, nothing but overgrown brush and an old abandoned cabin, hidden behind vines and fallen branches. It shouldn't have been there. At least, according to every record, every satellite image, every property map, it did not exist. But the dogs, the blood, the girls' whispered words, they led here. The cabin's windows were dark, but reflections in the glass hinted at movement inside. Agents approached slowly, rifles raised, every sense on edge. Ranger's growl intensified. He pressed against the door, pawing, barking, whining. There was someone or something inside. Someone had been here recently. "Breach in 5 seconds, Carter muttered. "Ranger, hold." But Ranger refused. He lunged at the door, forcing agents to catch him mid-spring. The girl's whispered location had been precise. The cabin wasn't random. Whoever built it wanted to hide. Whoever built it had walls designed to trap, to keep, to terrify. Inside, the air was thick and metallic. Rope burns marred the floorboards. Children's shoes were scattered like evidence of panic. Food wrappers, syringes, and discarded clothing littered the floor. Cameras, small, modern, numerous, lined the walls. Someone had been watching them, watching the FBI, watching Ranger. Carter's stomach sank. He crouched to examine a hidden corner. A trapdoor, cleverly camouflaged under a faded rug, revealed a steel-reinforced hatch leading down. The smell of antiseptic, urine, and fear seeped up from below. Ranger whimpered, then barked, loud, insistent. "They're here," Carter whispered, more to himself than anyone. "Still here." The agents descended into the darkness carefully. Flashlights revealed the horrors below. Walls soundproofed, ceilings low, the faint hum of electronics. Screens displayed video feeds, loops of movement from other locations. Footage of children, footage of Ranger, footage of the FBI's own field office. Agent Ramirez's voice shook. They've been watching him, studying him. They knew he would come. A sudden sound, a door creaking above, made every agent freeze. Ranger's ears twitched. He bolted toward a bank of monitors, scratching, barking, circling. He had smelled something, felt something, known something they hadn't even considered yet. Then the faint sound of movement came from another shaft, another corridor, children's voices, whispering, crying, pleading. Ranger barked again, louder, almost like a command. This way. The agents moved cautiously, weapons up, adrenaline coiling like a spring in every muscle. Every turn revealed more horrors, signs of long-term captivity, recent occupation, traces of chemical agents, faint trails of blood, the stench of fear embedded in the walls. And then the girl's voice, trembling but desperate, broke through the tense silence. They're coming back. Every agent froze. Outside, the wind howled through the broken roof beams of the abandoned cabin. Rangers' growls deepened, low and dangerous. They weren't just searching anymore. They weren't just rescuing. They were entering a war zone designed specifically to trap them. No one knew how many were down there. No one knew what they would face. But Ranger, drenched in blood and purpose, pressed forward. He refused to rest. He refused to stop. He would not leave the children behind. Carter swallowed hard, eyes scanning the dark. Move, he ordered, and pray this isn't a setup. A faint flicker of light appeared down one corridor, then another. The voices, the cries shifted, scattered, calling, whispering. Ranger charged forward again, and the agents followed, every step a calculated risk. Then a noise. A door slammed somewhere above, echoing like a gunshot in the confined space. Ranger froze, hackles up, teeth bared. Someone was watching, waiting, studying their every move. The girl's words hung in the air like smoke. They're coming back for me. Outside, the night held its breath. And inside, the agents realized the truth. This was not a rescue. This was the beginning of something far larger, far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. And Ranger, he wasn't just a dog, he was their first warning. A silent, growling promise, he would not fail. The cabin's exterior seemed almost innocent in the pale light of the moon, just weathered wood, chipped paint, broken shutters. But inside, it was a different world entirely. Agents Carter and Ramirez followed Ranger down the narrow corridor that smelled of damp wood and fear. Each step revealed a new layer of horror. Rope marks marred the floorboards, scattered children's shoes. Crumpled blankets and empty food wrappers littered the room, telling a story of weeks, months, maybe years of captivity. The walls, Carter noted with a grim eye, were soundproofed. Tiny cameras embedded in corners and hanging from the ceiling pointed in every direction. Whoever had built this place didn't just want to hide. They wanted control, omnipresent control. Ranger barked, a low growl that vibrated through the floorboards. He pawed at a section of wall that looked unremarkable at first glance. Carter crouched beside him and ran his hands over the surface, noticing the faint outline of a hidden hatch. With a shared nod, they lifted it. Below lay a reinforced steel door, its edges sealed, its lock sophisticated but not unbreakable to trained agents. The moment the door opened, a cold, sterile smell hit them. The air was thick and unwelcoming. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above, illuminating a narrow staircase leading deeper into the earth. Ranger lunged first, body tense, sniffing every shadow. The agents followed, rifles raised, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The underground chamber that greeted them was bigger than expected. Walls were lined with monitors, each showing video feeds from locations across several states. Some cameras were live, others looped recordings. Children's faces flickered across the screens, some sleeping, some crying, some staring blankly, eyes wide with terror. And then their worst realization. Ranger's own image appeared repeatedly, captured in footage from weeks past. "They've been watching him," whispered Ramirez. His hand didn't shake on his weapon, but his teeth clenched. Studying him, predicting his moves, waiting for him to make a mistake. Carter scanned the monitors, stomach twisting. The images weren't random. They were meticulous. Surveillance of FBI facilities, Rangers training grounds, even video from previous missions. Whoever was behind this wasn't just a criminal. They were organized, patient, military trained. Ranger's hackles rose, ears pinned back. He paced in front of a bank of monitors, whining, circling, scratching. He stopped suddenly at a section of floor, pawing furiously at the hatch below. Carter examined it, noticing a faint light escaping through cracks. "Another passage," he said, voice tight. "Looks like someone was moving kids through here, recently." Ramirez nodded, and they weren't planning to let us find it. Carter took a deep breath. "We're going down, Ranger leads, you follow, stay sharp." The stairwell descended into darkness, narrow and oppressive. Every step echoed off the concrete walls, mingling with faint, terrified whispers. Ranger moved with precision, sniffing, growling, pausing at each intersection. The agents followed, their senses stretched to the limit. Somewhere, deep in the bowels of the facility, children were alive but in danger, and they had no idea how many. The passage opened into a low-ceilinged bunker. It was empty, except for monitors, cables, and the faint hum of machinery. On the screens, images of children flashed, some familiar from the girl they'd rescued, others new. They were being transported, rotated through different hidden locations, always under surveillance, always watched. Ranger barked once, a short, sharp warning. Carter and Ramirez followed his gaze. On a small screen, a man's face appeared, a stranger at first glance, but something about his posture, the way he handled the children, sent a chill down their spines. Calm, calculated, unflinching, a predator. "He's good," Ramirez muttered. "Trained, efficient, dangerous." Carter felt the weight of it. This wasn't just a kidnapping ring. It wasn't even organized crime in its simplest form. This was a network, systematic, far-reaching, and lethal. Ranger pawed at a hidden console, alerting them to a locked door beneath a steel panel. Carter pried it open, revealing a second, smaller chamber. The air was colder here, the floor damp, and in the corner the smell hit them first. Blood, fresh, metallic. Carter's stomach turned. He signaled for Ramirez to cover him and approached slowly. Ranger stayed by the door, growling, hackles up, ears flat. Carter's flashlight revealed the reason for the smell. The walls were smeared with streaks of blood, carefully wiped but not fully cleaned. On the floor, a single pair of children's shoes, worn and dusty, sat next to a rolled-up blanket. "They're keeping kids here temporarily," Carter whispered. "Maybe a holding point before transport, and judging by the blood, someone fights back, or someone doesn't survive." Suddenly the monitors flickered, a low hum, then static. Carter cursed under his breath. "We're being watched again." Ranger barked, snapping to attention. Something moved above the bunker, a shadow reflected faintly on the walls. The agents froze, every sound amplified in the enclosed space. Then came the softest, most terrifying sound, the click of a metal door locking above them. "Trap," Ramirez breathed. Carter nodded grimly. "No mistake, they want to delay us, they want to see how far we'll go, and they know we care about the kids." Ranger pawed the ground furiously, whining, his instincts screaming at him. He didn't need commands. He knew they had to move deeper. Somewhere beyond this bunker were more children, more lives at risk, and more answers. As Carter checked the monitors, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Images of Ranger from earlier days, surveillance of past missions, even footage from the field office where the girl had been rescued. Whoever ran this operation had predicted Ranger's every move. "They're not just organized," Ramirez said quietly. "They're obsessed." Suddenly, a monitor lit up with a live feed, a room somewhere else entirely. Children huddled together, whispering, eyes wide with terror. One of the children looked straight into the camera and said something that froze Carter in place. "Please hurry, he's coming back for us." Ranger barked, low and warning. He pressed against the hatch. Carter felt it in his bones. This was no ordinary rescue. Every step forward could trigger retaliation. Every movement was being watched, every reaction anticipated. The agents steeled themselves. They weren't just investigating anymore. They were entering a war zone designed to trap them, to test them, to challenge them in ways they had never imagined. Carter glanced at Ranger, blood-soaked and trembling but still standing, eyes unwavering. The K-9's gaze was more than loyalty. It was intelligence, awareness, and a determination that human training alone could not replicate. "We go now," Carter whispered. "Ranger leads, everyone else follows." The dog bolted down the next passage without hesitation. The agents followed, flashlights cutting through darkness, hearts pounding, adrenaline surging. Every shadow could conceal a predator. Every whisper could signal a trap. And deep inside the bunker, somewhere in the labyrinth of hidden chambers, cameras tracked their every move, capturing, recording, predicting. Carter's teeth clenched. "They're ready for us. They've been waiting for this moment." Ranger barked again, short and sharp, cutting through the tense silence. It was both a warning and a command. "This way." The agents moved forward, aware that the children's lives, and their own, hung in the balance. Somewhere ahead, beyond the shadows, beyond the layers of traps and surveillance, was the heart of the operation. And Carter knew one thing for certain. If they failed, no one would ever see daylight again. The hospital was quiet compared to the chaos outside, but the tension inside the pediatric trauma unit was suffocating. The girl, so small, so fragile, lay under a heated blanket, pale, trembling, with tubes snaking into her arms. Her dark hair clung to her blood-streaked cheeks, her wide eyes darting nervously across the room. She was awake, finally awake, but terrified, and she didn't speak. Not yet. Ranger sat beside her bed, trembling slightly, though his eyes never left her. He rested his head near her hand, letting her feel the familiar weight of the dog who had carried her to safety. Every now and then, he nudged her gently with his nose, as if to remind her she wasn't alone. Special Agent Carter stood a few feet away, hands folded, voice low and calm. He had watched the girl's body language from the moment she entered the hospital, flinching at sudden sounds, blinking rapidly at every shadow, gripping her blanket as though it were a lifeline. He knew trauma when he saw it. He had faced danger, seen victims, interrogated criminals, but nothing compared to the raw, palpable fear in this child. "Hey," he said softly, crouching down so he was level with her eyes. "You're safe now. You're with people who will protect you. Do you understand me?" She blinked, eyes wide, trembling. Then she whispered, barely audible, "They're still out there." Carter's stomach tightened. "We know, and we're going to make sure you're safe." She shook her head violently. "No, they'll find me." Ranger growled low, protective, warning, and the girl's eyes softened for just a moment. She reached out with one small hand to stroke his head. The dog's ears flicked back, tail wagging ever so slightly, sensing the fragile calm. "Can you tell me what happened?" Carter asked, voice soft but insistent. "We need to know, please." Her lips trembled, she drew in a shaky breath. They take kids," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Not just me, lots of them. They move them like cargo, different places, different states, always hidden, always watched." Ramirez, standing behind Carter, felt a chill crawl down his spine. "Different states. This isn't a local abduction. This is bigger." The girl continued, trembling. I saw, when they moved me, other kids, smaller ones, crying, trying to get away, but they couldn't." Her eyes filled with tears, and she buried her face in the blanket. Ranger nudged her gently again, growling softly. "They're not just criminals," she whispered. "They're trained, like soldiers, like they know what we'll do before we do it." Carter exchanged a glance with Ramirez. The FBI had handled high-risk kidnappings, hostage situations, and organized crime, but military-trained criminals, that changed everything. "They're prepared," Ramirez said quietly, "prepared to fight us." The girl's eyes widened in terror. They said if we escape, we die. If anyone tries, we all die. They make sure we stay afraid, always afraid." Carter's jaw tightened. "Do you know who they are?" She shook her head violently. "No, but they wear badges. They look like law enforcement, like FBI sometimes, like police, but they're not." A bead of sweat slid down Carter's temple. That explained a lot, the precision, the surveillance, the planning. The captors weren't just trained, they were insiders. People with access, people who could move undetected. "They're coming back for me," she said suddenly, voice shaking. "I know they are, they'll come." At that moment the hospital alarms blared, red lights flashing, sirens echoing. The girl screamed, flinching back against her blanket. Carter spun around, gun in hand, signaling the team to cover exits. "They're here," whispered Ramirez, teeth clenched, just like she said. Outside the room, two men were moving quickly, trying to blend in. They wore standard federal-style uniforms, IDs in hand, perfect on paper, too perfect. Carter and Ramirez intercepted them, weapons raised, eyes locked. "Step away," Carter commanded. The men stopped, calm, smiling, too calm, too smug. "You won't keep her safe," one of them said quietly, almost a whisper. His tone sent a chill down Carter's spine. Ramirez studied them, anger rising. "Who the hell are you? How did you get past security?" The men didn't panic, didn't hesitate, just stared, eyes cold, calculating. "You don't understand," the taller one said. "This is bigger than you people realize, and it's not over." Carter glared, realizing that the girl's fear was justified. These weren't opportunistic kidnappers. These weren't petty criminals. These were trained, organized, calculating, and they knew the FBI would try to stop them. Ranger growled, low and steady. The dog sensed the threat instinctively. Every fiber of his being screamed at him that these men were dangerous, that they weren't bluffing, that if they got to the girl, it could be deadly. The girl's eyes were wide as she watched the confrontation. Trembling, she whispered, They're watching me. They ca." Carter grabbed her hand gently. "You're safe," he said, though even he wasn't entirely sure of that. "I promise you, we won't let them touch you." The men exchanged a glance, then slowly backed away, fading into the shadows. Outside, the black SUV that had been tailing the hospital sped off into the night, tires kicking up gravel. Carter exhaled sharply. "They're organized and they're not afraid of us. Not yet, but they will be." The girl hugged Ranger tightly, tears streaming down her face. I thought I was going to die." Ranger licked her cheek softly, a small reassurance in the midst of terror. Carter and Ramirez watched, hearts heavy. They had rescued her, yes, but what she had revealed changed everything. This was not a simple abduction. This was a network, moving children like cargo, military-trained, meticulous, protected. And they had just been awakened to the fact that the FBI was actively following one thread of their operation. Carter's mind raced. If this group was capable of what they had described, there was no telling how far-reaching it was. How many children? How many locations? How many predators masked as law enforcement or government agents? "We need to track every lead," Carter said firmly. "Everyone. Start with the cabin, the route she was taken, everything we know. And we need to protect her now at all costs." The girl's small voice broke through. They'll come back," she repeated, eyes wide and haunted. They always come back." Ranger growled again, low and steady, as if he understood perfectly. He would be ready. He would not leave her side, not now, not ever. And Carter realized something chilling. If they were going to stop these people, they weren't just chasing criminals. They were running a race against a network that was always one step ahead. Outside the hospital windows, the night was alive with movement. Sirens flashed, helicopters hovered, shadows shifted. Somewhere out there, the enemies of this child were already watching, already planning. And somewhere deep inside her, the girl knew it too. "They're coming," she whispered again, curling closer to Ranger. Carter clenched his fists, eyes hard. "Let them come," he muttered under his breath. "We'll be ready." But even as he said it, he knew the next move could mean life or death, not just for her, but for everyone involved. Because the network that had stolen her was not just dangerous, they were relentless, and the FBI had only just scratched the surface. The hospital still buzzed with tension, sirens blaring in the distance when the first sign of the imposters appeared. They weren't sloppy, far from it. Two men walked confidently toward the pediatric ward, their posture perfect, uniforms immaculate, badges gleaming in the fluorescent light. On paper, they looked legitimate: federal-style vests, identification cards, even service pistols at their hips. But every agent in the room felt it immediately. Something was wrong. Special Agent Carter's hand went to his firearm instinctively while Ramirez's eyes narrowed. "Not authorized," Carter muttered, voice low. The men stopped, smiles calm, almost mocking. They didn't flinch. They didn't hesitate. They were comfortable with deception. "You won't keep her safe," the taller one said quietly, almost a whisper. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement, a promise. Carter stepped forward, voice cold and controlled. "Step away. Now you don't belong here." The man tilted his head, calm as if discussing the weather. "We know who she is. We know what she knows, and you're in the way." The girl, huddled under Ranger's protective stance, whimpered. Her small hand gripped the dog's fur as if it were her lifeline. Ranger growled low, teeth bared, ears flat. His growl wasn't just instinct, it was warning. Ramirez moved to intercept them, tactical training kicking in. "Turn around, step back, now." The imposters laughed softly. One of them let a hand drift toward his pocket, but Carter didn't hesitate. Gun trained, finger ready. Last warning, move or be taken down. Suddenly the imposters smiled, a chilling, knowing smile. "Do you think this is about a child?" the shorter one said. "You're too small-minded to understand. This is about control, about keeping power, about proving you're irrelevant." Carter's eyes narrowed. "You're criminals, that's all you are." The taller one shook his head slowly. "No, we're guardians of something you can't comprehend, and if you try to stop it, you'll regret it." Ranger barked sharply, a warning sharp enough to echo down the hallways. The imposters froze for a brief second, eyes flicking toward the dog. Then they smiled again, almost amused. "Ah," one said, "the dog knows, we like that. But even he can't protect her forever." Carter clenched his jaw. He couldn't let them near the girl, but he also knew these men weren't acting alone. Every instinct screamed danger. Every tactical scenario he had studied came rushing back. But this wasn't training. This was real, deadly, unpredictable. Without warning, the imposters retreated toward the emergency exit. Carter signaled the agents behind him to pursue. The girl's whispered sobs filled the room. Ranger lunged toward the exit, body tense, growling low. Carter hesitated, then followed. Outside, the black SUV they had seen earlier waited in the shadows, engine running, headlights dimmed. The imposters slid into the driver and passenger seats like they had rehearsed it 100 times. The vehicle lurched forward, tires kicking up gravel. Carter cursed under his breath. They're not trying to hide, they want to be followed. Ranger barked, growling, and agents sprinted to their vehicles. Helicopters circled above, lights scanning. The pursuit was on, but the imposters weren't panicking. They drove like predators, knowing exactly where to go, how to evade, how to manipulate the FBI's response. Inside the SUV, the taller man spoke calmly into a secure phone line. "They have the girl. They have the dog, but they're predictable. We've watched Ranger. We've anticipated every move. They'll lead themselves straight to the trap." The shorter one smirked, glancing at the monitors in the vehicle showing the girl's vital signs and movement from earlier cameras. "And if they don't, we'll adapt. They're already inside our game. They just don't know it yet." Carter's convoy gained ground, the black SUV weaving through back roads with uncanny precision. The helicopter feed above illuminated the route, but every turn the agents took was mirrored by the SUV's evasive maneuvers. "They're professionals," Ramirez muttered, "and they know us maybe better than we know ourselves." The girl, meanwhile, stayed close to Ranger, her body trembling with every bump of the van. Her eyes, wide and haunted, scanned the windows for any sign of the imposter's intentions. "They're coming," she whispered repeatedly, voice shaking. "They're coming for me." Carter's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. He wanted to reassure her, but he knew it wasn't enough. Words weren't enough. Actions were. And they were in the middle of a deadly game, one that had been set in motion long before the FBI had even realized the scale of the operation. As the convoy turned onto a secluded forest road, the black SUV made a sudden maneuver, cutting into a narrow dirt path that seemed almost impossible for larger vehicles. Carter's team followed cautiously, aware of traps. Ranger barked and growled, sensing something unseen ahead. The path opened into a clearing, the kind of place that could hide a dozen vehicles with overgrown foliage and hidden ditches. Carter's eyes scanned, rifle ready. The black SUV disappeared behind the trees, and for a moment silence fell. Too quiet. Then from the shadows came the sound of movement, vehicles, soft engines, and footsteps. The imposters had set up another layer of their plan. It wasn't just an escape route. It was a staging area, ready to engage, ready to fight. Ranger growled, hair standing on end, barking furiously. Carter and Ramirez moved to flank, weapons raised, ready for confrontation. The girl clutched Ranger tightly, whispering prayers under her breath. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the trees, calm, commanding, chilling. "Bring us the girl, or no one leaves alive." Every agent froze, every muscle tensed, every heartbeat thumped like a drum in the silence. The imposters weren't bluffing. They had prepared for combat. Ranger lunged forward, breaking the tense moment. Barking, growling, teeth bared. He would protect the girl at all costs. And the agents followed suit, weapons aimed at the shadows, ready for anything. From the tree line, movement flickered, figures appearing and disappearing. Tactical lights from the FBI vehicles swept the area, revealing masked faces, weapons, and stances that were precise, disciplined, trained. Carter realized with a sinking feeling. This wasn't just a small kidnapping ring. This wasn't street-level criminals. This was military-grade coordination, inside knowledge, and cold-blooded precision. Ramirez muttered under his breath, voice tight with tension. "They're not just trying to escape. They want to lure us into something bigger. A trap. And we just drove straight into it." Carter's mind raced. He had to protect the girl, he had to secure the perimeter, he had to anticipate the next move. But the scale of what they were facing was overwhelming, and one mistake could cost lives. Ranger barked again, sharp and insistent, pulling Carter's attention to a hidden trail on the edge of the clearing. A small, camouflaged path, just wide enough for a person, or maybe Ranger, to slip through unnoticed. Carter understood immediately. The dog knew the way. He always knew the way. And if Ranger could lead them, maybe, just maybe, they could gain the upper hand. But even as Carter prepared to move, the taller imposter's voice rang out again. "You can't win. You're already inside our plan, and it's only beginning." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Ranger growled low, protective, determined. He would not fail. And the agents, knowing the stakes, followed, every step deliberate, hearts pounding, knowing that the next confrontation could determine life or death, not just for the girl, but for every child trapped in this network. Because these men weren't criminals. They were predators, and predators didn't lose easily. The SUV and the FBI convoy disappeared into the thickening forest, headlights piercing through layers of mist and fog. Every crunch of tires over gravel, every snapping twig underfoot, carried the weight of life-or-death stakes. The girl, huddled close to Ranger in the armored van, shivered uncontrollably. Her small frame trembled not only from fear, but from the adrenaline that had been coursing through her veins since the day of her abduction. Ranger, however, did not tire. Every sense was heightened, every muscle coiled like a spring. His nose twitched with each new scent, the imposters, the forest, the faint traces of other children. Every step he took was precise, leading the agents forward as if he could see what the humans could not. Special Agent Carter followed closely, scanning with night vision goggles, rifling through satellite coordinates fed live from command. "We're closing in," he murmured, though his voice carried no relief. He knew better. In situations like this, proximity didn't equal safety. Then the forest opened into an abandoned freight yard. Shadows of derelict shipping containers stretched across the clearing, eerily still under the moonlight. The air was thick with the scent of gasoline, sweat, and something more metallic, blood. Ranger froze, ears back, growling low. Every instinct told him this was a critical location, a transfer point. Agents dismounted quickly, rifles raised. Carter motioned for his team to fan out. "Eyes up, approach slowly, Ranger leads." The dog bounded forward, nose low, scanning, growling, stopping occasionally to mark scents. He led them to the first shipping container, the smell of recently disturbed metal and faint traces of movement emanating from beneath the doors. Carter's stomach churned. "Breach team on my mark," he whispered, voice tight. Inside the first container they found nothing. At first glance empty, but Ranger's paws scratched insistently at the floor. Carter pried open a hidden compartment, revealing a cache of children's belongings. Small shoes, dolls, tattered clothing, a notebook filled with childish scribbles. "Someone been here recently," Ramirez whispered. "Very recently." Ranger barked sharply, pulling toward the next container. Carter nodded, signaling the team forward. One by one they opened the shipping units. Each one held chilling evidence. Small cages, blankets, empty water bottles, signs of food preparation. And in a few, children still alive, weak but conscious, hiding under makeshift coverings. Tears sprang to Carter's eyes despite his training. "Keep them calm, keep them safe," he instructed. "Ranger, good boy." The dog pressed against each child, growling at anyone who approached too closely. His instincts were flawless, protective, precise, unwavering. Then the unmistakable sound of metal scraping echoed from the far side of the yard. Ranger's hackles rose. Carter froze, signaling his team to take defensive positions. Flashlights swung toward the noise, revealing masked figures emerging from shadows, armed and moving with military precision. "They've known we'd find this place," Ramirez said grimly. "They planned for it." Ranger barked violently, charging the nearest figure. The masked man fired a warning shot and chaos erupted. Agents returned fire, tactical maneuvers kicking in instinctively. The children, some crying, some frozen in fear, were quickly ushered into safer positions by backup teams. Through the gunfire, Carter noticed the imposters, the same men from the hospital, standing at a distance observing. They weren't panicking. They weren't retreating. They were calculating, watching the battle unfold as if it were a game. "Move, move," Carter shouted. "Secure the perimeter. Ranger, stay with the kids." Ranger, uninjured but tense, positioned himself between the children and the advancing threats. His growl vibrated through the yard, warning the attackers that he would not yield. In the chaos, Carter spotted a subtle pattern. The attackers were attempting to herd the FBI toward a specific container at the far end. Ramirez caught on immediately. "They're herding us like prey," he said, voice tight. "They want to control our movement, predict our next step." Carter adjusted the strategy. "Split teams, keep the children covered, trap them if possible, but do not endanger the kids." The firefight intensified. Shadows flitted between containers. Gunfire rang out in the cold night, echoing off metal walls. Then came a scream. One of the children had been cornered by a masked figure. Ranger reacted instantly, charging, teeth bared, knocking the assailant aside. Carter's team moved in tandem, securing the child and subduing the attacker. One by one, the masked figures fell back, retreating strategically into the shadows. Carter knew better than to think this was over. It was never over. Whoever was behind this operation was relentless, organized, and fully prepared to adapt. Carter surveyed the yard. The containers had been cleared, the children secured. Ranger, blood and mud streaked across his fur, remained vigilant, nose twitching, ears scanning every corner. Then came a faint electronic beep from one of the containers. Carter approached cautiously, discovering a small, hidden control panel, an encrypted communication device. It had been active, sending coordinates, transmitting live feed, communicating with other parts of the operation. "They're everywhere," Ramirez muttered, jaw tight. "We've just scratched the surface." The device revealed a network, offshore servers, encrypted accounts, movement logs, and scheduled transfers. Carter's heart sank. This was bigger than any case he had ever handled. Entire states, multiple locations. Children moved like commodities. And worst of all, the operation had inside help, people with badges, credentials, access. Ranger barked again, leading Carter to another hidden area beneath a container. A hatch opened to reveal a small room, dark, cramped, and filled with evidence of recent activity. Food wrappers, blankets, ropes, and more children's belongings. Every corner screamed desperation, fear, control. The girl they had rescued at the hospital had been just one thread of this network. Hundreds of children could be at risk, moved from one hidden location to another, always under surveillance, always under control. Carter exhaled sharply, watching Ranger protect the children with unwavering determination. "We can't just rescue them," he muttered. "We have to dismantle the network, every last connection, every single node." Ranger barked sharply as if agreeing. He had led them here. He had saved the first child. And now he would continue to lead them, guiding the FBI deeper into the operation's heart. Suddenly, a distant metallic bang echoed across the yard. The sound reverberated off containers, creating a terrifying cacophony. The team froze. Every instinct screamed danger. Ranger growled low, hackles up, ears pinned. The warehouse doors at the far end of the yard slammed shut. No one had touched them. They were trapped. Carter's eyes hardened. "Everyone positions. We move cautiously. Ranger leads and we follow. This isn't just a rescue anymore, it's a battle." The children huddled together, Ranger between them and the shadows, growling, protective, alert. The agents tightened their grips on their weapons, moving as one. Every step could trigger traps, ambushes, or retaliation. And somewhere, deep in the network, the masterminds were watching. They had predicted this outcome. They had anticipated the FBI's response. And they had plans in motion that no one yet understood. Ranger barked, lunged forward, and padded down a narrow alley between containers. The agents followed, heartbeats sinking to the dog's unwavering pace. Every shadow, every sound, every whisper of movement could be the difference between life and death. Carter realized as he scanned the yard that this operation wasn't just about kidnapping children. It was a test, a gauntlet, and they had no choice but to run it, guided by a single, relentless K-9 who refused to fail. Because the stakes were higher than anyone had imagined. And the network was watching. The alley between the shipping containers seemed endless, the shadows stretching unnaturally as the moonlight flickered over twisted metal. Ranger led the way, nose low, ears pricked, muscles coiled. Every instinct screamed danger, every hair on his body was alert. Special Agent Carter followed, rifle trained, eyes scanning, adrenaline sharpening his senses to a razor's edge. Ramirez and the backup teams flanked, weapons ready, their breaths shallow but steady. The warehouse loomed ahead like a fortress. The air was thick with anticipation. Every agent knew that inside, the network's heart pulsed, and it would strike without hesitation. The girl clutched Ranger's fur, eyes wide and trembling, whispering, "They're waiting, I know it." Carter's jaw tightened. "Stay calm, stay low. Ranger leads and we follow. Everyone eyes up. One wrong move, we lose everything." Ranger paused at the entrance, growling low, hackles raised. The faint metallic scent of blood and fear hung in the air. Someone was inside, watching, waiting. He sniffed, nudging the door with a paw, then barked sharply. The signal was clear. They were not alone. Carter motioned for the breach team. Flashlights and tactical lights illuminated the warehouse interior, revealing rows of shipping containers stacked like walls in a labyrinth. The smell of damp metal and chemical cleaners mixed with the faint stench of fear. Suddenly, a figure darted across the shadows, fast, trained, deliberate. The agents fired, striking a wall just behind the intruder. Another figure emerged from above, dropping silently from a mezzanine, weapon trained, moving like a predator. "They're expecting us," Ramirez shouted, ducking behind a container. Carter pressed forward, rifle tight against his shoulder. "Ranger, stay close. Watch the children." The dog barked, growling, darting ahead, weaving between shadows, guiding the agents through the maze. Every step he took was precise, calculated, leading them toward the central part of the warehouse. Then came the first real confrontation. A masked operative appeared in front of them, weapon raised. Ranger lunged, teeth bared, knocking the man off balance. Carter and Ramirez moved in instantly, subduing the attacker. More figures emerged from the shadows, firing blindly, using the stacked containers for cover. The sound of gunfire echoed like rolling thunder. Sparks flew as bullets struck metal, shattering the eerie calm. "Ranger, stay with the kids," Carter yelled, seeing the girl duck behind the dog's solid frame. Ranger barked in response, growling as he positioned himself between the children and the attackers. His movements were almost human in precision, shielding, protecting, striking. Through the chaos, Carter noticed a series of laptops and monitors at the center of the warehouse. Whoever ran this operation was monitoring everything, tracking every move, predicting responses. He gestured to Ramirez. "Take that corner, secure the tech. If we destroy this, we cripple them." Ramirez nodded, moving carefully, clearing a path. Ranger sniffed at the perimeter, then growled sharply. From above, a shadow detached itself, a man descending from the catwalk, knife in hand, agile and lethal. Carter fired, hitting the man's arm, but he rolled away, coming up behind another container. Ranger barked, leaping toward him, teeth snapping. The operative fell back, scowling, disappearing into the shadows. Carter pressed forward, heart racing. Then the warehouse lights flickered, one moment blazing, the next plunging them into darkness. Panic flared, bullets ricocheting, shouts echoing. Carter's flashlight caught movement. A group of masked operatives circling, trying to herd them into a trap. "They're closing in," Ramirez shouted. "Split, cover the kids." Ranger barked and lunged again, his growls commanding attention, keeping the attackers at bay. The children clung to him, some sobbing, some shaking, but all alive, protected by the unwavering K9. Carter pressed forward, identifying a locked cage at the far end. Inside were more children, trapped and terrified, their small faces pressed against the bars. Another operative approached the cage, knife in hand. Ranger leapt, teeth sinking into the man's shoulder, growling, snapping. The attacker staggered back, giving Carter the opening to fire a warning shot into the wall near his feet. The children screamed and Ranger barked sharply, herding them closer to the agents. Carter checked their perimeter. Every masked operative was accounted for, subdued or retreating. But he knew better. These men weren't ordinary criminals. They were strategists, trained, relentless, and the warehouse was their domain. From the shadows, the taller imposter from the hospital appeared, smirking. He clapped slowly. "Impressive," he said calmly. "But this was all expected. You're still playing into our plan." Carter leveled his rifle. "Step forward and answer for what you've done, or face consequences." The imposter tilted his head, eyes cold. "Consequences? You don't even know the full scope. This is bigger than you, bigger than your agency. And yet, here you are, so predictable." Ramirez growled. "You threaten children. That makes you a target, not untouchable." Ranger growled low, hackles raised, eyes locked on the imposter. Carter felt the K9's tension, the intelligence, the understanding of imminent danger. Ranger wasn't just protecting the girl, he was reading the enemy, anticipating their moves. Suddenly, a trap triggered, hidden tripwires releasing reinforced steel doors, cutting off the exits. The agents were momentarily trapped, the children clustered behind Ranger. Bullets ricocheted from metal, sparks flying. Carter's mind raced, calculating options. "Ranger, lead them," he shouted, trusting the dog's instincts completely. The dog leapt forward, guiding the children through a narrow, hidden passage only he could navigate. Carter and Ramirez followed, weapons trained, heart pounding. The imposter barked orders, but his forces were scattered, disoriented by Ranger's unpredictable movements. One by one, the agents neutralized threats, clearing corridors with tactical precision. They emerged into a secondary chamber, a storage room dimly lit, filled with evidence of the network's operations. Encrypted laptops, shipping manifests, files, and communication devices. Carter's eyes scanned quickly, recognizing the scale of what they had just stepped into. This wasn't just one warehouse. It was a hub, a command center, a pipeline of human trafficking spanning states, possibly countries. Ranger nudged the girl forward gently, growling low as if to say, "Keep moving, stay safe." Carter placed a hand on the dog's head, whispering, "Good boy, you're saving lives tonight." The girl finally whispered, her voice trembling but determined, He saved us." She looked at Ranger, eyes wide and tearful. "All of us." Carter nodded, eyes scanning the remaining shadows. "We finished this. No one else gets hurt tonight." From above, a sound, a distant door slamming, a faint hum of engines, signaled reinforcements. The network wasn't finished. They weren't done. The mastermind behind this operation was watching, calculating, preparing for the next move. But Ranger didn't hesitate. He lunged again, growling, protecting the children as Carter and Ramirez secured the room. Every second mattered. Every moment of distraction could be fatal. And in that tense, metallic warehouse, the unspoken truth hung in the air. They had reached the last stand. Not just a fight for survival, but a fight to dismantle a network of unimaginable scale, to rescue children from the unthinkable, and to confront predators who believed themselves untouchable. Ranger growled, barked, and nudged the children forward. Carter's heart pounded. He knew the final confrontation was imminent, and that the lives of every child in the warehouse, and possibly beyond, depended on the next steps. Outside, shadows moved, engines hummed, and the mastermind's voice crackled faintly over an encrypted radio. "They're here, and yet still predictable. Wait for the perfect moment." Carter whispered under his breath, eyes hard. "No more waiting, no more mercy. Tonight ends for them." Ranger growled low, teeth bared, unwavering. The girl clung to him, sobbing quietly. And for the first time in hours, there was a flicker of hope amid the chaos. Because the dog who refused to fail was leading them, and they would not leave a single child behind. The warehouse trembled under the weight of anticipation. Every shadow seemed alive, every echo a potential threat. Ranger led the children through the narrow labyrinth of containers, moving with a speed and precision that defied human expectation. Special agents Carter and Ramirez followed close behind, rifles trained, nerves tight. The girl, gripping Ranger's fur, whispered prayers under her breath. She wasn't the only one. The other rescued children clung to the dog and agents, their faces pale, wide-eyed, fragile yet clinging to a spark of hope. Carter's mind raced. The network's mastermind was still at large. Every movement they had made had been calculated. Every escape route, every diversion, was a trap in disguise. He scanned the monitors they had seized earlier, flickering images of locations, movements, and operatives. They had barely scratched the surface of the organization's reach. Ranger paused at a reinforced steel door at the far end of the warehouse, growling low, body tense. Carter crouched beside him, flashlight cutting across the metal. The dog sniffed, pawed at the door, then barked sharply, his gaze locking on something unseen. "They're here," Carter said, voice low. He signaled Ramirez, and together they prepared for breach. The children huddled close, Ranger between them and the door, growling protective. With a firm kick, the door swung open to reveal the heart of the network. A high-tech command center hidden within the warehouse, cables running across the floor, monitors displaying live feeds of every location, every operative, every child still in the network's control. And there, seated calmly, the mastermind, the man behind the chaos, the one who had orchestrated abductions, surveillance, and terror with military precision, looked up. He was ordinary at first glance, neat hair, crisp uniform, calm eyes, but there was a darkness in his gaze, a cold calculation that made Carter's blood run cold. "I wondered when you'd get here," he said smoothly. "Predictable, loyal, obedient, all of you." Carter raised his rifle. "Step away from the children, it's over." The mastermind smiled faintly. "Over? No, this is just the beginning. You think you've dismantled the operation. You've only uncovered a corner. Hundreds of children are still out there, and every action you take plays into our design." Ranger growled, low and menacing. He stepped forward, placing himself squarely between the children and the mastermind. His eyes burned with intelligence, determination, and raw instinct. The dog knew this man's danger better than anyone, better than humans could comprehend. The mastermind's hand moved subtly toward a hidden trigger beneath the desk. Carter noticed instantly. "Ramirez, watch the desk." Bullets flew. Carter fired, striking the mechanism before the man could activate it. Sparks ignited from the consoles, some screens shattering, wires arcing. The mastermind scowled, but his composure remained unsettlingly intact. He rose, weapon drawn, moving toward the nearest exit to escape. Ranger lunged. Teeth snapped inches from the man's arm, forcing him back. Carter and Ramirez surged forward, cornering him. He fired, but bullets ricocheted harmlessly off steel supports. The dog barked sharply, lunging again, snapping the mastermind's path, forcing him into the open. The agents advanced in perfect coordination, finally subduing him with cuffs and tactical holds. Carter's hand trembled slightly as he secured the man. "It's over," he said, though he knew that in the larger sense the battle was far from finished. The children watched silently, wide-eyed, their faces pale but slowly softening as Ranger nudged them gently, reassuring, protective. Carter turned to the girl he had rescued first. She clung to Ranger, sobbing quietly. "He saved us," she whispered, voice trembling, looking up at the dog with awe. Ranger nudged her hand with his nose, tail wagging slightly, as if acknowledging her words. Carter crouched beside them. "Yes, he did, and so did you. You were brave, you survived, and now we'll make sure everyone else does too." Outside, FBI reinforcements moved in, securing the surrounding area. Every operative, every piece of evidence, every network hub within reach was seized. Carter and Ramirez oversaw the process, coordinating transport for the rescued children, ensuring immediate medical and psychological care. But even as relief washed over the team, the larger network scope loomed. Servers, encrypted files, and surveillance data revealed an operation spanning multiple states, hundreds of children, and deeply entrenched insiders. The mastermind's plan had been meticulous, but the FBI's strike, guided by Ranger's unmatched instincts, had delivered a decisive blow. The girl, still clinging to Ranger, finally spoke fully, her voice trembling but clear. He came for me. He saved us all." She hugged Ranger tightly. Carter glanced around the room, seeing the relief on the children's faces, Ranger's unwavering vigilance, and the exhausted but victorious agents. Ranger's role had been more than heroic, it had been decisive. He had carried the first child through danger, protected them all in the warehouse, and guided the FBI through a labyrinth of death and deception. Without him, countless lives could have been lost. Carter stood, eyes scanning the aftermath. "We've won tonight," he said softly. "But this fight, this network, there's still work to be done, and we'll finish it. Every last child, every last perpetrator, every last lie they've built. Ranger barked softly, tail wagging, eyes scanning the room. The girl smiled faintly, brushing dirt from his fur. He had not only saved lives, he had restored hope. And in that moment, Carter realized something profound. The dog wasn't just a tool or a partner. He was a guardian, a hero, and the heart of this operation's salvation. As the rescued children were led to waiting ambulances and safe houses, Ranger remained vigilant, nose to the wind, ears twitching, ready for the slightest sign of danger. Carter watched him, pride swelling. The dog had done more than anyone could have expected. He had outsmarted trained killers, saved lives, and never faltered, not once. Ramirez approached, placing a hand on Carter's shoulder. "He's incredible," he said quietly. "We owe him everything." Carter nodded, glancing at Ranger, who had settled beside the girl, resting his head gently on her lap. "Yes," he said, "but don't forget this, we all played a part. It's teamwork, but he was extraordinary." For the girl, Ranger had been everything. For the agents, he had been the difference between life and death. And for the children yet to be rescued from the network's reach, he had proven that instinct, loyalty, and courage could face the darkest evil and prevail. Carter finally allowed himself to breathe, relief mingling with exhaustion. They had dismantled the immediate threat, rescued the children, and captured the mastermind. But he knew the fight wasn't over. The network's depth was still unknown, its influence vast, its reach sinister. Yet tonight, they had won a monumental battle. The girl, still clutching Ranger, whispered, "Thank you. You saved us all." Ranger nudged her hand softly, a gentle reminder that hope, loyalty, and bravery could thrive even in the darkest night. Carter watched, heart heavy but proud, knowing the dog had changed everything. Outside, the dawn was breaking, casting pale light over the warehouse and forest. The darkness that had held so many in fear began to recede. The mastermind was in custody, the children safe, and Ranger, the unlikely hero, stood proud, vigilant, ready to face whatever came next. Carter placed a hand on Ranger's head. "Good job, boy, you did it, you saved them all." Ranger barked softly, tail wagging, eyes shining. The girl hugged him tightly, and Carter realized that some heroes didn't wear uniforms. Some heroes walked on four legs, barked, and refused to fail, ever. And in the aftermath of terror, blood, and calculated evil, one truth remained clear. Ranger was not just a K-9. He was a legend.